Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Dear brothers and sisters, we welcome you all to this online Q&A series. For today, let's try to cover one question with respect to black magic. Many of you would have been puzzled by the series of questions which is coming in the same topic, and I hope you won't assume that this is going to be a series in black magic. However, since we started the topic of jinn, we opened up a whole bunch of Pandora box, and which is actually forcing us to basically touch upon all the topics related to that one. And I think, inshallah, this going forward, this would be the last topic with respect to black magic. The today's question is: was Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam bewitched by Labid bin al-Asam? And what is the status of hadith pertaining to Muaddatain? So the question here is based upon probably the answers we have been seeing with respect to jinns and black magics. We have been reiterating multiple times in the series that there is nothing called as black magic, and black magic cannot cause any harm. So having said that, because black magic cannot cause any harm, and we all know that any form of black magic is actually prohibited in Islam, number one. Number two, believing in sihr is also believing in sihr would invariably make us disbelievers. So these are the very fundamental things in Islam. So that's the reason I'm giving so much of emphasis on this topic, black magic. Unfortunately, many people who are actually following the Quran and Sunnah are also not immune to this one. They also fall to the prey of black magic and believing in black magic, thereby losing their iman. So inshallah, I hope this series would be an eye opener for those brothers as well. So now, because we have constantly been reminding the audience that there is nothing called as black magic, and black magic cannot cause any harm on any individuals, the only weapon, the only hadith which will be posed by the people from the other side is basically from that of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They will very well bring a hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because there is a hadith which talks about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam being bewitched by Labid bin al-Asam. They bring this hadith as a proof to claim that black magic indeed exists. So because that there is an authentic hadith which is mentioned in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih al-Muslim, which talks about that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was actually bewitched by a Jew by name Labid bin al-Asam. And as a result of that, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam suffered from that black magic for almost 6 months. And some of the side effects of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he was bewitched of black magic, is that he was in a state of forgetfulness for almost 6 months. Sometimes Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would also get confused whether he went and had a family relationship with his wife or not. So to that extent, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is confused, and that's the whole hadith all about. Now coming back to this one, this is the only single source of hadith which many people claim, and then they say that because Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is also bewitched, there are chances that we Muslims can also be bewitched because of black magic. They also agree to the fact that learning black magic is kufr. Learning black magic is disbelief. However, they say that we will have to believe in black magic because the hadith says so. So this is the argument of other folks who are actually advocating about black magic. But my dear brothers and sisters, in order to understand any context from the Quran, first we should understand the way how this particular context is being described by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah is the orator of the Quran. So Allah is the one who sent down the Quran through Jibreel alayhi salam to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam for the benefit of the Ummah. So Allah is the orator of the Quran. So we need to understand from the orator as to what does he mean by sihr. So that's very fundamental essence of understanding any topic for that matter. So if we have to understand anything from the Quran, first we need to understand the circumstances, and we need to understand the context in which that particular ruling is being laid in the Quran. In similar lines, the definition of the word sihr from Quran can be derived from several verses in the Quran. So according to the Quran, I'm not talking about any other Arabic dictionary, I'm just talking directly from the Quran. According to the Quran, because over a period of time, people have been trying to adopt to the current chronological meaning of the word, and then they take a ruling from that. But for any Muslim to arrive at a right conclusion, we should actually look at the way how it is mentioned in the Quran. We should turn back to the Quran to see in what context this particular thing is referenced to. If you read the Quran, there are several instances in the Quran which talks about sihr, right? Sihr is not a topic which is just described in one or two, places in the Quran. Rather, Allah talks about sihr in several places. But a closer look at that, all the instances where Allah has used the word sihr, we would be arriving at a conclusion that wherever, in any context, in any sentence, any phrase of the Quran where Allah has used the word sihr, that can be invariably, replaced with a lie. So now, for example, let me give you an example for this one. If you read the Quran, chapter 52, verse number 14 and 15, where Allah talks about the disbelievers when they go to the hell. We all know that the Muslims are the one who believe in the Akhirah. Muslims are the one who believe in the heaven and the hell. And the disbelievers are those who actually deny the fact that there is something called as a hell or there is something called as a heaven even exists. So these disbelievers, the moment Allah puts the disbelievers in the hell, because when these disbelievers were living in the world and claiming that there is nothing called as hell and they were falsifying the claim of hell, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask these disbelievers of a sihrum hada. Immediately after He puts them in the hell, Allah will ask these disbelievers, is this what you are considering as magic? So they were calling hell as lie in this world. So Allah will immediately put them in the hell and He'll ask him. The immediate question to them is, "Afasihrum hada? Did you ever think that this is going to be a magic? Did you ever think that this is going to be a lie? And that's the reason you have been neglecting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?" So that's the question Allah will pose to the disbelievers. So there are like several verses. I can keep on adding multiple references to this, but one reference is good enough for us to understand. So according to this reference, my dear brothers and sisters, it is evident that the word sihr can be replaced with something called as a lie, a blatant lie in Quran. So even in other cases for that matter, the longest phrases where the description of sihr is given is during the time of Musa alayhi salam. When Musa alayhi salam was sent to the Pharaoh and claimed that he was the prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Pharaoh wanted to arrange something. Pharaoh wanted to arrange a competition to defeat Musa alayhi salam. For that, he chose the best of the magicians living across that city. And he pulled all those magicians from different parts of the city, and he wanted to compete with Musa alayhi salam. So when that conversation was going on, the magicians are displaying their they're basically displaying their talent by posing different forms of magic. And finally, Allah gives a commandment to Musa alayhi salam, and Musa alayhi salam drops the stick. And we all know this history from the Quran, where immediately after Musa alayhi salam drops that, this gets converted into a snake and swallows everything else what has been put across by these magicians. So looking at this, all the magicians also embrace Islam. So this is a history which is talking about Musa alayhi salam. So if you read such histories, in one of the places in the Quran, like Surah Taha, verse number 69, chapter 20, verse number 16 of the Quran, Musa alayhi salam, after exhibiting the talent which Allah gives, like the stick getting converted into a snake and swallowing all the other magic which is put across by these magicians. So immediately after that, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "La yuflihu sahiru haisu atta." The magicians will not be successful wherever he is. So these are the two things. One thing is, sihr means that it's a lie. Number two, even if a person claims to be practicing sihr or black magic, he will never succeed wherever he is. So this is La yuflihu sahiru haisu hatta. These are the two verses which we should actually ponder upon, my dear brothers and sisters. So now, having said that, there is nothing called as sihr, and the black magicians will never succeed. Now coming back to the actual context of where Prophet Muhammad is believed to be bewitched by a Jew by name Labid bin al-Azam, the history goes on like this. The Jew Labid bin Azam collects some the comb of Prophet Muhammad the hair of Prophet Muhammad and he basically dumps all that under a well, and he puts some magical spell on that, because of which Prophet Muhammad was in a state of forgetfulness for almost 6 months. Now my dear brothers and sisters, Prophet Muhammad is not like an ordinary man like you and me. So he had a special mission to accomplish, and that special mission we all know is to teach the people the Quran and the Sunnah. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the one who will have to teach Islam to the people, Islam to the Ummah. That's the only mission why Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent. Now imagine the 6 months of forgetfulness, the state of forgetfulness of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is going to be very disastrous. So it is not like you and me forgetting for 6 months being in state of coma. No. But if it comes to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he has a role to fulfill. He has a role to basically ensure that the people are getting right guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whenever they have a question with respect to any ruling, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a single point of contact for those people. Remember, my brothers and sisters, there were no published books or any form of sort where these people can turn to. They always considered that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the single source of message, single source of authentic message for them to carry on with the day-to-day activity. Number one. Number two, we all know that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has been memorizing the Quran. So Allah has made it easy for Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to memorize the Quran, and the Quran was revealed in oral tradition. It was not derived in the form of a book. It was not revealed in the form of a book. Having said that, when this has to be preserved in the oral tradition, that means that 6 months is very crucial. So now the question comes, if Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was state similar to like something like a mentally disturbed state where he is in a state of forgetfulness. Now the question will arise on the authenticity of the Quran and authenticity of the verses which was revealed during the 6 months tenure when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was believed to be bewitched, right? So this is very dangerous for us to believe that Prophet Muhammad is ever bewitched. Now, if you also read some other references, people also try to quote one hadith, especially from the tafsirs. They say that because Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was bewitched, and there were 2 surahs in the Quran. I think we talked about it a bit in a couple of days back, but I would want to give you a little more explanation on this one. People believe that these 2 surahs, Surah An-Nas and Surah Al-Falaq, were the last 2 surahs of the Quran, were revealed as a relief for the black magic what Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was suffering. So this was the belief of the people. Now, for that, there are some tafsirs. For example, Sa'albi writes in his tafsir that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was bewitched, and because of providing remedy to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah revealed the 2 verses, which is considered to be it is named as Mu'adzatain. So, in other words, these are also called as the verses of relief. Because these 2 surahs were revealed for relief of black magic, they were considered to be something called as Mu'adzatain, meaning the 2 verses of the relief. However, if you give a closer look into this particular hadith, it will be very clear for us, my dear brothers and sisters, that this particular hadith does not have an authentic chain of narration. So this hadith just talks about being narrated by Aisha radiallahu anha and Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. Just the reference of this is given. There is nowhere the authentic chain is being explained. Like we all know, for any hadith for that matter, if it has to fit into an authentic hadith bucket, we will consider it as authentic with one condition. One of the condition of treating a hadith as authentic is that it should have a proper chain of narration, and there should not be any breakage in this chain. Meaning, the hadith should actually start from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It should fall all the way till the last person narrates this hadith, where the author of the book basically records this hadith. So this is called as an authentic chain of narration. If there is any breakage or if there is any gap in this particular chain of narration, then we don't consider that hadith to be an authentic hadith with respect to narrations. So in similar lines, the story which is described about that these 2 surahs are revealed for the relief of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam does not have any authentic chain of narration. So this is totally considered as void, and we don't even have to consider that one. Secondly, people claiming that these 2 surahs are the one which is revealed for the remedy of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They believe that these 2 surahs, Surah An-Nas and Surah Al-Falaq, were revealed in Makkah, and they call these surahs as Makki surah. Right? The people name these surahs as Makki because they believe that these surahs are revealed when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in Makkah. We all know that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in Makkah initially, and then later on he migrated to Medina. So any verses which fall into Madani is called any verses which was any Quranic surah which is revealed when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in Medina is called as Madani. Now we have a clear distinguishing factor between Makki and Madani surah. because these people consider that Surah Al-Nas and Surah Al-Falaq, Surah 113 and 114 of the Quran, are considered to be Makki. And then they say that Prophet Muhammad was impacted of black magic in Medina by a Jew called Labid bin al-Asam. These two surahs are revealed. We all know that the first 10 years, the 13 years of initial days, Prophet Muhammad spent that 13 years in Makkah. And that, assuming that surah is revealed during the Makkah time, and the treatment for sihr is actually during the Medina days. So this itself is a contradicting thing. So we don't even have to consider that. There is something called as Mu'adhatain, which talks about relief of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Moreover, people also quote one word from that particular surah, saying that وَمِن شَرِّ النَّفَّاثَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ, saying that because it talks about women blowing on the knots, so it is referring to the sihr which was actually kept against Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now think about it, my dear brothers and sisters. When I talked about the story of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam believed to be bewitched, now the Prophet Muhammad was never bewitched, but believed to be so-called bewitched. That story has a reference of a Jew, a male Jew by name Labid bin al-Azam. Now, assuming if these two verses are revealed for the treatment of sihr, the sihr which was caused by a male person by name Labid bin al-Azam, and you recite this verse, it talks about seeking refuge from the women who blow on the knot, it is contradictory. So Prophet Muhammad will not give some contradictory statements like that. So this itself says that this particular surah is not related. And moreover, we also saw what the surah actually refers to, right? We discussed about the surah in detail, that this talks about the shaitan tying knots every night when we go to sleep, and morning these knots are untied if we wake up and offer the salah of Fajr. That is totally clear. Now finally, when we have to say that Prophet Muhammad is bewitched, I cautiously warn my dear brothers and sisters in Islam to read a couple of verses in the Quran. For example, if you read the verse Surah Banu Israel, chapter 17, verse number 47, which talks about the belief of the wrongdoers. During the time of Prophet Muhammad there were two, broadly people are divided into two groups, basically the believers and the non-believers, right? The believers were all like, they were considered to be good people. The disbelievers were all, considered to be dhalimun, or wrongdoers. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَقُولُ الظَّالِمُونَ أَن تَتَّبِعُونَ الرَّجُلَ إِلَّا مَشْهُورًا. So this is mentioned in Quran chapter 17, Surah Banu Israel, verse number 47, where Allah says, يَقُولُ الظَّالِمُونَ. The wrongdoers used to say, أَن تَتَّبِعُونَ الرَّجُلَ إِلَّا مَشْهُورًا. The wrong believers used to believe, they used to say that you are following none other than a person who is being bewitched. So if you read this verse, Surah Banu Israel chapter 17, verse number 47, let's see it one more time. يَقُولُ الظَّالِمُونَ إِن تَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا رَجُلًا مَشْهُورًا. So this is very clear indication that the Muslims living during the time of Prophet Muhammad themselves did not believe that Prophet Muhammad was bewitched. Rather, only the sect of people who are wrongdoers, who are actually the disbelievers among the people living during the time of Prophet Muhammad are the only group of people who believe Prophet Muhammad to be bewitched. So this is one fundamental thing which we also have to ponder upon. So this is a very, very solid proof for us to say that Prophet Muhammad was not bewitched. And further on, one other verse, I think I mentioned this verse initially during my talk. We should think about this verse where Allah says, La yuflihu sahiru haysu hatta. The magician cannot succeed wherever he is. So this is something like something like an authentic thing or an emphasis given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Allah himself says that, Allah gives us a very straight and strict stringent rule saying that La yuflihu sahiru haysu hatta. The magicians cannot succeed wherever he is. So this is like a challenge which Allah poses. Magicians can come in any form, but they will never succeed. Is something like a challenge what is posed in the Quran. Now, if a Muslim believes that the Jew was successful, the Labid bin al-Azam was successful in basically bewitching Prophet Muhammad then we are going against these two Quranic verses. So then we are saying that no, magicians can succeed in the way if he comes in the form of Labid bin al-Azam, right? So Allah says, La yuflihu sahiru haisu ata. The magicians cannot succeed in wherever he is. So this is basically some of the this is a fundamental thing which is taught by the Quran. And when you believe, and when you and I start believing, saying that no, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was indeed bewitched, that means we are going against this Quranic verse. So my dear brothers and sisters, I know there is one particular topic which is pending out here, is that if Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not bewitched at all, then why are few hadiths which is mentioned in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih al-Muslim which talks about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam being bewitched, and what are the state of these hadith? So we will have to see this in a detail, but I would like to give you very short and crisp explanation to this particular thing as well, to this particular aspect. Like we all know, there are two sources of reference for us in Deen. One is the Quran, and another one is the authentic hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, when we know Quran cannot be modified. Allah Himself has taken a responsibility of preserving it. Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra wa inna lahu lahafidun. Allah Himself takes the responsibility of preserving the Quran. So there is no second thought about Quran and contention between the Quranic verses. That's perfectly clear because Allah Himself took the responsibility. Now, when it comes to hadith, the hadiths are not documented in the way of Quran is. Now, take for an example, there may be millions and millions of hafil we can find who have memorized the Quran, but we cannot find people who memorize the hadith, right? People will know some certain hadith, but not the entire hadith. You would not find people memorizing the whole of the hadith. So this is one thing. Secondly, if you have to take a hadith into consideration, you need to get into the depth of the science of hadith to categorize it as Sahih hadith and Daif hadith. And one of the yardstick of categorizing this hadith into Sahih and Daif is based on the narration chain. And Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim or any other prominent scholars in Islam have basically used this yardstick of categorizing a hadith into Sahih and Daif based on the authentic chain of narration. Like I was explaining you about the chain of narration should start from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam all the way until the people who is actually informing the narrator, informing the author of the book, like Imam Bukhari or Imam Muslim. So that tradition has to be clear. There should not be any deviation between this. There should not be any gap between this. Always between each and every narrator, there has to be a substantial amount of overlap. Always between each narrators of this hadith, there has to be a substantial period in which these two people have met. For example, the narrator 1 and narrator 2 should have lived during a similar time, or they should have at least met during once in their lifetime. So there are a lot of things about this, and that is when we arrive at a hadith saying that this hadith is not authentic based on the authentic chain of narration. This is one yardstick. However, this is not just the only yardstick to determine whether a hadith is sahih or not. There is one other very fundamental yardstick for any hadith, is that the hadith should not contradict with the Quranic verses. Now, if there is a hadith which talks about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam being bewitched, it is going directly against the Quranic verse where Allah Himself says, "La yuflihu sahiru haisu hatta." The magicians cannot succeed if wherever he is. The magicians will never succeed wherever he is. And when you take this Quranic verse into picture, when you start believing this Quranic verse, now you cannot believe this hadith. The reason you cannot believe this hadith is because it is directly contradicting. Like Allah also says that about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yaqulu dhalimuna an tattabiyuna rajula illa yaqulu dhalimuna in tattabiyuna rajula illa mashura. So Allah also says that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Surah Banu Israel chapter 17 verse number 47. So only the wrongdoers used to say that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was bewitched. And when you take this hadith into consideration, and if you start believing in this hadith where it talks about the narration of the bewitchment of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then these two are contradicting with each other. Because if you have to believe this hadith, that means as a Muslim, you are forced to believe that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is bewitched, which is against the teaching of the Quran, which directly says that only the wrongdoers used to believe that Prophet Muhammad is bewitched. So this is, I think we have come to the conclusion of the series of questions. Like I told you, we just started out with jinns and opened up a Pandora box of different aspects we need to cover up with respect to black magic and jinns, because it's so important in our day-to-day life that it is something which should basically spoil our iman. If somebody believes in sihr, that means he becomes a disbeliever. If somebody teaches sihr, he becomes a disbeliever. If somebody believes that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is bewitched, then we go against the teaching of Quran. So Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was never bewitched, because Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you believe that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is bewitched, then we doubt the authenticity of the Quran for the 6 months when Prophet Muhammad was in the state of forgetfulness. So this will open up a lot of other issues, which is which a Muslim should not believe, and a wise Muslim should always turn back to the Quran and stick to the teachings of the Quran and believe that Prophet Muhammad is never bewitched. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My dear brothers and sisters, we have come to the end of this program. I urge you to send your questions to 9886 9444636. And like I told during my initial time of the talk, that we have been kind of covering a lot of aspects with respect to black magic. And please don't take me wrong that we are covering a series of black magic. No, I wanted to ensure that all the questions with respect to black magic is addressed, and then we move on. So inshallah, we'll start with other newer questions from tomorrow. If at all you have any questions to be prioritized before the question set of questions we have, I urge you to send it to the WhatsApp number, and look forward for this program every day. Every night at 8:30 p.m. inshallah. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.